Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. My name is Michael Sládek. I'm an indie filmmaker as well as the New York consultant for SAGindie. Before we're joined by our guests, I want to let you know that SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $6.5 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. If you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information will be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce screenwriter Tim Long and star Ed Oxenbould from The Exchange. Welcome, guys. Thanks for
pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great. You guys are both at your respective homes, I assume, or at least somewhere that's not crowded with people. Where are you, just so we know what part of the world you're in?
I'm in West Hollywood, California, and it's a decent hour. And I think that contrasts with what Ed is experiencing right now.
Yeah, I'm not at home. I'm currently traveling in Perth, and it's 5 o'clock in the morning.
Nice.
Yeah, in this dreaded apartment. This apartment is
All right. Well, thanks for joining us so early. I'm in New York, where it's beautiful out right now, but whatever. Well, beautiful and rainy. That's what we get now all the time in New York. So speaking of places, so Tim, as far as I can tell from the internet, you grew up in what, Brandon, Manitoba?
I was born in Brandon, Manitoba, which is a reasonably sized small city by Canadian standards, but grew up in a town called Exeter, a charming little burg of 4,000 people.
Even better. Okay.
In rural Ontario. Yeah.
And the main character's name is Tim. So is this your story?
I would say there are certain elements in which this is my story. I named the character after myself for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's easy to remember. Secondly, I felt like I went into this feeling like, I've been told that in movies, screenwriters don't have much power. And so I figured, if I name the character after myself, maybe that'll give me a little more clout. So I would say that the character is similar to me in some ways. He's not as handsome or as charming as Ed, but the character, I would say the story is largely my own and the character is largely me.
Okay. So, and I'm curious about the development. When did you decide that you needed to write this, and how long did it, percolate, and from thinking about it to doing it and then actually going through process?
Well, it actually started as a spoken word kind of comedy essay that I read at a charity event, in which I talked about an experience I had with a French exchange student who wasn't entirely different from Stefan, the character in the movie. But mostly it was about my humiliation and my just cluelessness as a teenager and how I ended up stumbling into getting this exchange student in the first place. And so I read this story and it went pretty well. And then an agent of mine at CAA, this wonderful woman named Anne Blanchard, said, you should try to turn this into a feature, which to me as a TV writer sounded like, you should spend 5 years working on this and then have your heart broken. But I decided, what the hell, I'd give it a swing. And she hooked me up with this wonderful producer named Dan Hine, and we developed a pitch, and then we developed an outline, and then I wrote draft after draft after draft. And then eventually we got Dan Mazer involved, the amazing Dan Mazer, to direct, and then an incredible cast, including Ed. And then we shot it. And I would say that entire process from soup to nuts took about 4 years, maybe.
So how did you guys
actually kind of short by development standards?
Yeah. And how did you guys lure Mr. Mazer away from Sacha Cohen?
I think he was it's right place, right time. I think he was in a Borat interregnum, and I think he was looking to do something. I think he'd done a couple pretty big movies that he had really enjoyed doing, but was looking to do something a little smaller and character-based. And that just happened to be the time that it went under his nose. And Dan Mazer and I, it turns out I didn't know it, but we had mutual friends. And apparently Mazer did some investigating. And it turns out people told him I wasn't a complete psycho. So we ended up working together.
Just psycho enough.
Yes, just psycho enough to get into this industry in the first place.
Yeah. So, and then Ed, how did this come into your orbit?
This came through, it would have been in the back end of 2018, or maybe even the beginning of 2019. It was a relatively quick audition process, and it came through, read the script, absolutely loved it. And it was, I think it was 2 or 3 auditions, Skyped with Dan, met Dan, and then that was it. And then booked it, and it's always weird when I book it from, Australia, and I hadn't met anybody. So I'm kind of flying over there. And then I'm just hoping that I'm kind of, hope they just get, it's weird. It's weird knowing that kind of the first time they see me is going to be a couple of weeks before we start filming.
Well, now that's just the regular thing now that we're all stuck.
I don't know. It's expected. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the auditioning process. Were you auditioning with sides from the script, or did they send you other stuff? Were there any improvs, anything weird?
No, it was the first audition I just did, self-taping my parents, which was pretty standard, pretty normal. And then I did the callback with Dan, which was very interesting because he was laughing the whole time, which was kind of throwing me off, but also encouraging me. So as I was saying stuff, I could just hear him kind of laughing in the background as I was reading it with my dad, which was great. It was kind of reassuring, but also I was kind of trying to look at my dad while trying to check in with the screen to see if he was happy. Mm-hmm. And hearing those laughs was a good reassurance.
And did so were you the first person cast, and did everything flow from there, or any idea?
I think so. I think you can help me out.
I think so. I wouldn't say that under oth, but I think Ed was
yeah.
And then I think we built the world around him.
Kind of built around him. All right.
Yeah.
And so in terms of, was voiceover always a part of, was it always baked in? Was that something from the beginning that you wanted to do in the script?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of felt like, there's a lot of models. Voiceover, there's all these sort of rules in screenwriting. Absolutely don't use voiceover. And then other people will tell you, don't follow rules, do what you want. So which sort of, the net effect of this is there are no rules and you're going to screw up one way or the other. We felt like just the nostalgic tone of this script sort of demanded that it needed at least a little bit of voiceover, just so we got a sense of like, that there was a little bit of perspective on Ed's character. There's so many models. There's like the Wonder Years and a million other things that you can count that just gave it a little more of that period feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm in no way trying to say how dare you or anything, because I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of great movies and shows that have been made with written voiceover. I was just curious if it was something that you wanted from the beginning, or that you realized later on. It was baked in from the beginning, and we just felt like the most important thing with voiceover is that it's not just conveying information, or just not because you can't figure out another way to lay in exposition, that it has character development in itself. And we felt like, especially with the performance that Ed gave, that was there, and then it just gave yet another layer to the character. Uh-huh. And Ed, did you guys have rehearsals before this? I mean, comedy is just such another beast. And it was a very funny film. So I would assume that you guys had to really kind of get the timing down well. Were you able to rehearse, or was there no time for that?
Yeah, we did a bit of rehearsals, but I mean, we didn't really need to do much with the cast that we had. They're so naturally funny. I mean, the parents, Avon, Justin Hartley, I think everything came so natural. And there was quite a bit that was off the cuff. Not that it made it into the film, but we did a fair bit of rehearsal, but I don't know. This team wrote such an amazing script that we kind of didn't need to flesh it out. It was kind of just so good, and we just went, okay, and immediately recognized it, and then it translated so well onto screen.
So were you just kind of rehearsing on set, or did you spend a week together before production or anything?
Yeah, we had a week of stuff before, but again, we all bonded so quickly that with the bond was there, the chemistry was there, and then the jokes were there, and everything just kind of fell together immediately. I remember day one. Even we started with the diaphanous pants, the see-through pants scene. And it was great. It was already just so funny. There was no kind of awkward first day tension or anything, because we had that week to bond, where we bonded so quickly. It was great. Everything just went.
It was so good. And I felt very fortunate because I was there. Dan Mazer comes from such a writer's background and such an improvising background that he encouraged me to be around and to pitch stuff. And I was there for the entire shoot pretty much, which was kind of a rarity for a screenwriter. And so, yeah, we would after every scene, we would confer, talk to Ed, talk to Av, and come up with new stuff. And Ed's being modest, but a lot of the stuff those guys improvised did make it into the movie.
So were you guys, I mean, so obviously you were on set, so you were revising as need be. Did you shoot alts, or was it just mostly just in the moment doing the script, but with some leeway to play?
I'd say both. There are plenty of moments where we said, try this, do this. Dan is one of these people who feels like it has to develop, and yeah, we'd cut things, we'd change things, we'd send in alts. It was just very organic, and we almost always got where we wanted to go.
Just a lot of playing, huh?
Yeah.
So, and how long was the entire shoot?
I was drunk the whole time, so I can barely remember. But I would say I
was high the whole time. So I don't know. Yeah.
So those two highs kind of played off each other really well.
So it could have been a year, could have been 5 days.
Could have been a year, could have been all in one day, really. I think it was all told, it was like a 28 or 29 day shoot, so pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. And did I am curious about some of the gag development. There's so many great gags in it, from the pants, the see-through pants, to the hockey game reflected in the mom's glasses, to the whole shtick with the tractor store employees. Were the gags were these gags that you came up with when you were drunk and writing, or drunk and on set?
Well, the diaphanous pants was something I remembered from my exchange student. And I remember, I feel like what's important about that scene is not just that the pants are see-through, it's that Tim doesn't describe them as see-through, which any normal person would, is because he's such a teenage nerd, he says diaphanous. And I remember saying diaphanous about a certain kind of pants that I was appalled by as an 80s teenager. The glasses, I believe, was pitched by, we had a couple of punch-up sessions before we started shooting where I brought in a few Simpsons writers. And I want to say a writer named Matt Selman pitched that idea. So all credit to him. And the tractor business, I think Dan Mazer and I came up with. So yeah, it's like every draft had a new weird thing in it, and it all just sort of accumulated.
Yeah, there's some of the gags were just fantastic, and even like these tiny nuances. Like I noticed in the opening scene, the girl's hand kind of pawing at him in the front seat while she's having sex in the back seat, like just these little like things that I'm just curious, how much of this was baked in from the beginning, how much was happened on in the moment, I think we put that in the script. I think just off the top of my head, I feel like that was sort of the comedic equivalent of Titanic when Kate Winslet's hand goes against the window when she's having sex with Leo in the carriage. It's such a sexy moment. And we thought, sometimes you take those super dramatic things from other movies, borrow them, which is to say steal them, and give them a little bit of a comedic turn. And all of a sudden you got a whole new thing. Right. So Ed was the
tip for aspiring writers
at this point.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ed, you mentioned the rest of the cast. It really unexpectedly becomes kind of an ensemble piece at a certain point. And where did these folks come from? Where did was this all locally cast, or where did the rest of the cast come from?
There was a mixture of kind of everything. Like Abbott and Justin and Jennifer Irwin were all from LA. And then Paul Braunstein's a Canadian actor, and a lot of the local Canadian actors are just amazing. Even Rodrigo Stoll, who plays Kevin, it's such an amazing character. He just pops up, and whenever he pops up, you just go, "What is the most unpredictable?" Like wild card doesn't even do it justice, but it is. It's such a great ensemble piece, and everyone has their part, and it's such a perfect part, and it just contributes to feeling like a small town. It feels like you're in there. And I felt like I was Tim. I felt like I was stuck in that small town. Just wanted to get out.
Well, it's such a broad comedy, and I'm curious. Again, I'm sorry I keep coming back to where things originated, but having the writer here, I'm super curious about where characters like the cop / gym teacher. Were these based on real people, or is this like
it's funny. They really weren't. I mean, my line has been that the only real life person who has any reason to be embarrassed by this movie is me. Everyone else is just sort of, I would say, a composite or just a sort of person that I met. But I wanted to make sure that people That's one of the reasons that even though I named the character Tim Long, I changed the name of the town from Exeter to Hobart, because there were some elements in the town that I think were similar to what I experienced, like the sweetness and the eccentricity, but some of the weirder and maybe less savory parts of the town were completely made up for story.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that brings me to another question. So obviously you're riffing on 80s comedies, but I love that there was this, kind of race issue that makes it much more contemporary, and you would never see that in an 80s teen comedy. But I think it's great that it's there, and I'm curious, again, was that something that came along as you were going along, or was that something that you intended to do from the get-go, or was it based on reality?
Actually, it was something we sort of like mostly came up with as we were going along, because there's always a tricky thing about with a period movie. How do you make it relevant to today? Mm-hmm. And how do you make it, these were obviously issues that have been in the air the last few years. I mean, they've been in the air forever, but people have been talking about them more. And just the idea that somebody who's different, at first everyone finds them delightful, but the minute there's some sort of problem, they kind of become the target of a lot of feelings and a lot of attitudes that are not so attractive. So I think it's something that we developed along the way, just to give this movie, which is otherwise, like you said, kind of a broad comedy, a little more ballast, and to give it just a little more heft.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. So Ed, you've done a lot of different stuff, from working with Paul Dano and M. Night Shyamalan to Miguel Arteta. Can you give us just a sense of what the difference between working on this film, working with this director versus other directors, in terms of, obviously tone is one thing. Yeah. So that's you've done from broad comedy to serious, like subtle drama and sort of horror as well. So I'm curious what your take on working with these directors as well as on those genres is.
I don't know. I've been really fortunate to have already a kind of really diverse career. Like you said, I've done horror and now comedy, I've been really lucky, and they're all so much fun. But I think comedy just has to be the most fun. It's impossible not to have fun. When you're on set and you're with these great people, when you're around Tim and Dan and this amazing cast who are all just constantly making jokes, it becomes hard just trying to keep a straight face. It becomes much harder than trying to do a serious performance, but it's so much fun. It's great. We were so lucky, and I know everyone who was part of the exchange had such a good time every day.
How much, and in terms of like just character development, I know every actor's got their own process. Some people just show up on set and do what's on in front of them, and some people spend forever kind of doing, background work, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Where do you fall in that, if those are two extremes in your process, Ed?
I don't know. I get asked this question quite a bit, and I don't think I'll ever have an answer. I think I just kind of go with the flow, which is so lazy and sounds like a terrible actor's perspective. But I think I haven't really developed a kind of technique, if you will. I think I just kind of feel it out, see where the director's going, see where the project's headed. I think it'll take a few years to kind of nail what I like for me. But at the moment, I'm just trying different things and seeing what works, seeing both ends of the scale and see if they work, see if it feels more fresher and looser. If I've kind of just rock up on the day, which doesn't.
No, I don't think that's lazy at all. I think it's a choice. I think it's to do, and apparently, obviously, it's working. So
we'll see how it goes.
So let's talk about post-production. Tim, were you involved in the edit a lot as well? Were you rewriting it all? Were you coming up with voiceover nuances?
Yeah, we rewrote voiceover a lot, and most of the editing happened in London with Mazer and our producer Dan Hine. But I saw a number of cuts, and again, I feel so spoiled because I have screenwriter friends who have these horror stories about, like, they get a call and they're told the movie's coming out tomorrow. And then, I've had friends who've been told the movie's shooting right now and they didn't even know it. But I was kept kind of in the loop all the time. And we were rewriting voiceover, and then we wrote some gags for Ed and Avin to do for the little post-credit sequence in Paris, because we decided we needed to nail something down there, which I think is a really great touch. So I've for some reason, they kept me in the loop the whole time. I complained about things, but they actually listened 1 out of 3 times.
And were you, so, I mean, I don't know if you know anything about the music choices. Was that part of?
Oh, my script had a lot of music cues in it, which I know from The Simpsons can be a little indulgent because, those things are expensive. But those are all bands that I loved, and I loved the Smiths growing up. And the fact that not only are they in the soundtrack, but they get mentioned in the movie tickles me. So yeah, I feel like music was an integral part of the whole movie.
And that was from the get-go. So you were really kind of trying to push it towards the sounds that you wanted from the screenplay, and then they
totally. That. And I feel like a huge part of being an alienated team, if not now then, is liking music that no one else likes, and that you feel cool because you like it. And I feel like music was such a big part of this character's world, the world he'd sort of built around himself, that I felt like it was really part of the writing.
Yeah. Interesting. So, Ed, I'm curious if you have any opinions on how it is that Aussies seem to be so damn good at American accents.
The first one I did was American. I think they were pretty terrified of me kind of dropping the accent. So they made sure that I would never drop the accent. So I did an extensive amount of coaching, and to the point where it was almost like conditioning or brainwashing. So now I feel like I cannot slip up, because if I do, I can just see that vocal coach. I can see the image. I can hear her voice scolding me. So I'm terrified. So
you didn't have a vocal coach working with you on this, but you've done it on other pictures?
Yeah, I've had on a few, mainly on the first one, and then not so much ever since. But it's not that hard for Aussies to do. You'd find that most Aussies around the street can do it, because we, all the movies and TV and songs we listen to is American. It's so not a foreign accent.
Uh-huh. And yeah. I actually feel like Ed was doing a little bit of a soft Canadian accent as well. Maybe just because of the people he was around to it.
Canadian.
Yeah, which is very similar, but has some differences. But it was very, like, I'd always thought that, when actors put on an accent, they keep it going just not to lose it, and that Ed would just have the Canadian accent the whole time. But yeah, Dan Mazer would say cut, and then Ed would be talking in his Australian accent, and then we'd go roll again, and he was just flipping back and forth effortlessly.
Yeah, my bad. I was saying American, but it's clearly
it's a Canadian accent. We Canadians we get mixed up with the United States all the time. It's fine.
Yeah, what about Toronto? All right. So what's next for both of you? I'm curious what you're working on now, if anything. I know COVID's weird, so
what takes you to Perth?
Yeah, I'm doing a war film down in the
really
part of Western Australia. It's been pretty crazy, as war films are. It's just a bunch of men, dirt, and explosions. It's pretty insane.
You just sold the movie to me.
Yeah, that's what it's
Men,
called.
Dirt, and Explosions. That sounds amazing.
It's a thriller. Yeah.
Can you say which war, or are you like, did you just sign an NDA?
It's called Before Dawn, and so it's a bunch of the Anzacs in World War I going over to Mazines Ridge in France.
Oh wow,
that sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Are you a young recruit with the Anzacs? What are you?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Young farmhand who goes off. So it's been pretty full on. It's been a bizarre.
And has it been like Tropic Thunder? Have you had to do like military boot camp to get ready?
No, it's been like Heart of Darkness. It's been.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah. It's been, it's a small budget film trying to do a big war film. It's a tough. It's
That's
a big
so
ask.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just I'm in the leeway in between in Perth.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Great.
Looking forward to it. And Tim, what about you? What are you up to?
I am, mulling a few movie projects. I'm still sort of amazed that this movie came out, because I know the odds are stacked against it, especially a personal movie, especially a movie where someone's named after you. It feels like it's about a 1 million to 1. So I'm enjoying this experience, and also working on season 8,000 of The Simpsons. And we still have a lot of great stuff coming up. So
still going, huh? Wow.
Still going. Yeah.
Well, so the movie comes out on July 30th.
Week from tomorrow, July 30th. Yes.
Okay, well, that's a week from tomorrow. Okay, cool. Well, thanks so much for doing this, fellas. We really appreciate it. Best of luck with the film. Thank you for joining us, and best of luck in the Anzac trenches. Head low. And we really appreciate you doing this, guys. Take care.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Great to see you, Ed. And thanks, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah, you too, Tim.
Bye-bye.